Hey everybody, I am going to talk a little bit about one of the greatest athletes to ever live, and his name doesn't come up in conversations as much as it should in regards to history as being one of the greatest athletes. I don't know if that's just one of those things because at the end of his life he was in poverty and a severe alcoholic. But that's Jim Thorpe. Now, Jim Thorpe, in a lot of people's minds, historians, was the greatest athlete of the first part of the 20th century, the first 50 years. And he had a lot of Olympic records that stood for a long, long time to the middle of the century. And this is the first part of the century that he set these records. But Jim's records were actually not recognized because it was found that he took money for some events, and they stripped him of his records. But they were, I believe, reinstated after his death. But Jim was a pretty amazing athlete. Now, he was a Native American who grew up just running around, doing lots of trapping. He would run. He was out and about. And he said that one of his greatest quotes was, he may have an aversion for work, but he also said that he had an aversion for getting beat. So he was a very competitive guy. Now this is back early part of the 1900s. He could run the 100-yard dash in 10 seconds flat, the 220 in 21 seconds, the 440 in 51, the 800 in 157, and the mile in 435. The high hurdles in 15 seconds and the 220 low hurdles in 24. He could long jump 23 feet 6 inches and high jump 6'5". Pole vault 11 feet. He put the shot 47.9 and throw the javelin 163. The discus 136. Now he entered the 1912 Olympics and just really dominated everybody in terms of. Now back then they had the pentathlon, I believe, which was 15 events, and he pretty much dominated and set a record at the time of 8,413 points. That would stand for 2 decades. He won 8 of the 15 individual events in the pentathlon and decathlon. And the King of Sweden actually gave Thorpe his prize or his medals and said he was the greatest athlete in the world. And Thorpe replied, "Thanks, King." But a lot of people, remember Thorpe as a football player. Of course, he's in the Hall of Fame. I think he was part of the very first class, if I'm not mistaken. But he also was a baseball player. Very, very talented all-around athlete. He did his best to stay around athletics because that's what he knew, and that's how he made his living, the best that he could. But in the end, Jim Thorpe, as I said, he struggled to provide for his family after his athletic career was over, and he found it difficult to have non-sports related jobs, and never really had a job for an extended period of time. During the Great Depression, he had various jobs. He was an extra in the movies. He worked as a construction worker and a doorman, a security guard, and a ditch digger, and he was actually in the Merchant Marines. He was a chronic alcoholic, as I said, later in his life, and he ran out of money sometime in the early 1950s. Caught lip cancer in 1950, and he was admitted as a charity case. Often his wife said that they were broke, and he was often exploited. 1953, he went into heart failure, and he died at the age of 65. So he did live, back then by those standards, a pretty long life. I mean, that probably would have been average lifespan. But obviously, a lot of Native Americans have trouble with alcohol. I mean, that's just a genetic factor, unfortunately, and a lot of them are just incredible athletes as well. I lived in South Dakota, and I knew, in high school, some Native American athletes that were just incredible athletes. I mean, they were just fast, and I mean, they weren't necessarily tall, but they were incredibly fast and strong. And so Jim had a little of that ability. I have a lot of that ability. So again, if you look at his, Wikipedia has him at 6'1", 202. I don't know if that's necessary. Some people are saying he was about 5'10", 180. But needless to say, 6'1", 202 back in those days. That would have been a big guy. Back then, nutrition. People didn't get the nutrition, the health benefits, everything that they do these days. They struggled with a lot of reaching their maximum potential. So one only can imagine how good Jim Thorpe would have been if he would have lived a life, free of alcohol and nutrition of today. He definitely would have, probably keep up with today's athletes in that regard. But the legendary Jim Thorpe unfortunately died, like I said, broke and pretty much a broken man. But nevertheless, he will go down in history as one of the greatest athletes ever.